Ah, bad guys. We love to see them fail. We love to hate them. And sometimes we just can't help but root for them. A well written villain is what can make stories so diverse, real, difficult, and beautiful. Today, I want to explore why we enjoy seeing such evil villains, and why sometimes they are our heroes in their story. Foremost, this is a little different from my past video topics. However, it falls into the same theme I've been working to explore over the past 5 or so other discussions. I love to think about and learn about the condition of being, our experiences, and our perceptions. And guess what, you little slithery, slimy Backstreet Boys fans? That's exactly what we're gonna do. I've been thinking about this since I first watched shows about antiheroes like Donald Draper and BoJack Horseman. But after rewatching through Invincible, I have never been more excited to think about some of film and TV's wildest characters. Why do we love villains and characters who have deeply villain like qualities so much, and what makes them so fascinating? Well, I think the easiest way to answer that question is by looking at ourselves. As you're watching or listening to this, you live in some sort of society, or at least have to play by some of society's rules. You have a comprehension of language, meaning you also have to understand the nuances of humanity. I mean, probably, I guess, I can't guarantee that. But regardless, speaking generally, we all decide our morals and ethics, our principles and foundations for how we act, think, and believe. And personally, I believe we all try to be the best us we can be. This doesn't make us all good, quote unquote, in the traditional sense, but it makes us good versions of ourselves. In other words, just by performing the behaviors we do on a daily basis, we reinforce what we do and refine our skill set, whether we are really meaning to or not. Practice makes permanent, am I right? And we operate based off of some sort of reasoning, whether or not it's free will or fate, and if we think then act, or act then reflect to pair our beliefs with our actions will be a topic for later. Seriously, it's on the list of ideas I have for my ramblings. Nevertheless, though, we use reasoning as our fuel for motivation and action. Are you nihilist, atheist, religious, spiritual, confused? Are you trying to be a good family member, worker, friend, leader? Whatever it is, it helps guide your choices. Moreover, our previously mentioned morals and ethics, or the reasons we do what we do and believe, and what is and isn't okay to us, are monumental in our operations. We all have some sort of limit, be it for love of good or for lack of resources and energy. Still, some of us are firmly against killing of any type. Some of us only think it should be done if absolutely necessary, and even some of us have little to no objections on killing in certain situations. Hell, some people even perform horrible acts out of a desire to do so, or a rush they feel it can give them. The fact we all have some sort of reasoning and lines in the sand, and others have different ones, is absolutely crazy, weird, and possibly terrifying if we really think about it. And it lends to why certain villains can be so appealing for us to watch. However, despite our stubborn logic that we may apply to ourselves, there's another aspect of our being that makes things a little more complicated than us all being blue or red. You see, it is, in my eyes at least, a certainty that we cannot fully control our minds. I mean, just think about dreams. Despite our willpower and ability to stimulate lucidity, they're vastly out of our control in their construction. It's almost more like playing a game or watching a movie than living our life. And in these dreams, we may do things we don't do if we're awake. And even when awake, our minds still act on their own. Which, see my automatic complexities video for that rabbit hole. Regardless, we may hold certain beliefs and sentiments, but at the end of the day, those are only followed as well as our discipline holds up. And whether or not you've tried to force control over your mind, you have thought horrible things before. Not in a calling you out type of way, but it's true. We may be open to admitting when someone else is awful because of what they said, but it's very possible you've thought those very same things. Even if you're more disciplined now, we've all done things that we're not proud of or may have regrets over. We make mistakes, and that's okay. The thing is, while we can control our actions to a high degree, our minds seem to have thoughts float on by whether or not we want to think about them. For instance, you may have smelled or seen something that reminds you of something else before, takes you back to your childhood, makes you think of someone you care about or detest, or just makes you think about something you can draw similarities or differences to. This is a relatively automatic process in the way it just pops up in our heads. Maybe you see someone and immediately think about how attractive they are, or hear someone say something and are automatically disgusted at what they've said or think it's hilarious. Feelings, like thoughts, often both come about unannounced. We felt hatred. We felt pain, love, guilt, shame, and frustration. Pleasure, joy, happiness. They're all just parts of the constantly rotating series of events we exist in. This, in part with our morals, gives us one of the most fascinating reasons we love having strong villains. They're like us. The easiest way to demonstrate this is with antiheroes, who are typically protagonists with deep, complicated flaws. Donald Draper, Dexter, BoJack Horseman, Joe Goldberg, the characters who are part of the game in Breaking Bad, pretty much like everyone in Game of Thrones. They all clearly display the dark realities of our humanity. The reason they do things isn't so clearly about good and evil. It's about how complicated making decisions are and how we all think differently. Even though we may deeply disagree with how they handle themselves or what they do, we can clearly see their reasoning. We see the good things they do. We see how hard it is for them to figure out what to do, and often they're victims of their circumstances and their flaws along with antagonists to the world around them. For instance, in the incredibly groundbreaking show BoJack Horseman, the protagonist BoJack is a troubled former actor of a classic 90s style sitcom called Horsin' Around. However, now he's attempting to rekindle public interest in himself as a persona through participating in various media projects like a biography and acting in other television shows. However, he's haunted by his past traumas and mistakes, having a broken childhood and being at war with what he thinks he wants and the reality of what he actually enjoys. Despite his attempts to be good to others, he frequently sabotages himself and his relationships to hold control over others and try to keep those close to him in his life, which often backfires and reinforces his fears of not being good enough and having everyone he cares about abandon him and hurt him. Even when others truly care about him, he both pushes them away and works to force their place in his life by sabotaging opportunities, disrupting the success and well-being of Todd, Princess Carolyn, Diane, and Herb. Another example of a complicated, well-constructed antihero is Donald Draper from the hit show Mad Men. Following a group of advertising specialists working on the notorious Madison Avenue in the early 1960s, Donald Draper tries to bury his past, attempting to show others only the image he wants to be seen as, which is a powerful, intelligent, borderline emotionless at points, embodiment of what a real man should be during this time period. He drinks, smokes, provides for his family, and occasionally commits infidelity and does what he desires. But in reality, he feels fear and pain. He ran away from serving his country after witnessing a fellow higher-ranking soldier get killed in battle and fakes his death, taking the identity of the man who died. He ran away from his problems and constantly struggles with the image he wants others to see, trying to always seem strong and confident while also leaning heavily on coping mechanisms to try to escape the emotions he clearly has trouble facing, trying so hard to seem fearless and all-knowing. He frequently hurts people in his life in an attempt to maintain control and dignity, which often causes him to push others away and drown out his feelings. This results in the collapse of the family he grew up in and his nuclear family he worked to build, and causing pain in the hearts of his lovers and colleagues. These characters aren't good in the purely literal sense, but they're trying to do their best, despite their flaws and the people they hurt. And the truth of the matter is that this makes them relatable. We've all screwed up in one way or another. We've all hurt people, whether intentionally or not. We're all doing our best at our own lives and the cards we're handed. And in these shows, despite how extremely they demonstrate these things, we know the struggle of trying and failing and being in pain. These characters dance on the line between being heroes and utter degenerates. And when trying to decide if they're good, okay, or terrible, they're presented as purple instead of red or blue, visible but not fully on the dark or light side. They're nuanced. They're human. Beyond just their relatability, they also act on some of the same treacherous thoughts that we've had before. Even if, in passing, you may have wished harm on someone else in your head, maybe just for a brief split second, or wanted revenge or justice, wanted more money, power, and have felt greed, desire, and lust. In my opinion, this is what makes them so fascinating. Well-written anti-heroes and villains are flawed individuals who actually act on their desires. An excellent example of this is Walter White, who is a reserved, powerless high school chemistry teacher, who after receiving a severe cancer diagnosis, finally decides he wants to take control of his life, deciding to use his ingenious intellect and chemistry proficiency to manufacture high-grade methamphetamine to help with his family's financial instability. However, in this pursuit of money and power, he constantly forces himself and others into dangerous, sickening experiences. Even though he loves people deeply, he wants to finally live up to his potential and feel like he's in charge after a life of shying away from truly being the captain of his own destiny. In the process, he abuses one of his only true friends, Jesse Pinkman, manipulates his family, and contributes or directly ends the lives of countless others. Which, side note, in every show and movie I've ever seen Aaron Paul in, he is so talented at playing offbeat, beaten characters with a heart of gold and a trustingness that damages them. Crazy dude. I love that guy. Good guy. Anyways, Walter White and the Hyde to his Jekyll, Heisenberg, are witty, lucky, and arrogant. But most of all, he does what he wants, when he wants to, fully willing to commit atrocities that characters like Jesse, Mike, and even Saul Goodman are completely opposed to. This allows us to explore the pathways of desire and evil through witnessing Walt's actions, but they also mirror our own general conscience on screen in different ways, each character showing us a different way we ourselves may act in a situation or work to process things, seeing both the pleasurable grandeur and pure shame that evil actions may cause us. But so far, this is just looking at anti-heroes, characters who are filled with a depth and complexity that portray the dual nature of human emotion and the interconnectedness between good and evil. So what truly draws us to villainy? A level beyond anti-heroism, characters whose evil greatly outweighs their benevolence. Honestly, I really do think it's much of the same, just to a higher degree. It's a dive into the bizarre psyche of humanity, equivalent to spirits instead of the beers of anti-hero journeys. We don't truly root for the evils a villain commits, but we almost have a fear and admiration of their insanity and brutality that draws us to want to see them fall. When they feel pain, it feels good that they have to feel reconciliation over their actions. The other side of the coin from seeing anti-heroes feel good just to make us experience shame and disappointment over their mistakes and irredeemable decisions. Witnessing a true, terrifying villain makes us want to witness extremity, to rationalize their downfall. We can say they may be broken people, a product of their environment, childhood, or traumas. Yet, they ultimately cannot make a full recovery towards a general sense of goodness. A prime example of this is Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader himself. While Anakin's early years demonstrate him to be an anti-hero, he slowly is consumed with fear and hatred over the loss of those he loves. His desperate attempts to save the most important people in his life cause him to do anything and everything to make them stay. This causes him to murder children on multiple occasions, and eventually resort to destroying entire worlds because of his pain and vitriol. However, When he finally decides to save Luke and the Rebel Alliance, he ultimately fulfills his destiny of restoring balance to the Force. Seeing this act allows us to feel vindication over the horrors we've seen a character commit. In one way or another, seeing powerful, struggling anti-heroes and villains give us a deep test of our own morality. It challenges us to reflect on the nature of our character and the personalities we see in media. We get to first-hand see what dark paths can lead to without fully exploring them in our own lives. It reminds us of what's important to us. Plus, it demonstrates the difficult, bizarre, and sometimes tragic truths of our complicated journey as people. When watching these characters on screen, we don't just see the good parts of ourselves. We see our own struggles, losses, and defeats. Witnessing these wonderfully played parts mirrors a closer narrative to our own lives than anything else. It makes seeing the revenge and justifiably unethical actions they commit so rewarding, and the horrible, unjustified inflictions of pain so devastating. We truly go on the adventures with them, trying to understand them and both root for and against them. Nevertheless, that's all I wanted to talk about for right now. I hope you enjoyed this discussion and consider how you feel about strong anti-heroes and villains. What stands out to you about their roles and stories? How do you feel when you watch their victories and downfalls? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And speaking of love, if you're still here, I love you. You're a complex and nuanced being as well, full of love and pain. I'm proud of you. Keep doing your best. Just don't mimic these characters too much in your own life, alright? Little soft, cute kitties that are actually lions. Little circle of life, kings of the jungle. Sweet baconators. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And until next time, no, I do not have a Twitter. Do not look for it. Do not try to find anything, any terrible tweets put out. Were mine. It's an imposter. I'm serious. You really think I'd support the creation of an elite group of squirrels controlled by the CIA? No. Of course not. Stop being silly. Dude, I'm serious. I've never even heard of the Bohemian Groves. Stop saying that